Hey people, this is my sister Laura.
Hey, this is my sister Jean. We're the Reclamation sisters, and today we're going to talk about how to help a friend in crisis. So there might be a few reasons why you might be nervous about trying to help a friend who is struggling through addiction or somehow in crisis. It might be that you feel like that's not your place, that you don't really want to get involved in that. Or maybe you've been hurt by that friend because of their addiction. Maybe they've done something to hurt you and you're kind of upset about that. Or maybe you feel like sort of that bystander mentality that somebody else will take care of it. But if this is somebody that you care about, we want to talk about a few tips to help you reach out and help that person in crisis.
Yeah.
We're talking about a friend. So we're not talking about a parent who needs to take care of a child who's struggling through addiction. We're not talking about spouses. We're talking about friends because I think the level of responsibility in those situations is totally different.
Even as a person in recovery, I've had to reach out and provide support or suggest they might get a different level of help. I didn't want to do it either. Mm-hmm. Even though I know that that's what you need to do, because it creates discord and crisis and you don't really know how they're going to respond.
Yeah.
As a responsible person in their life and as a true friend, you have that conversation and it's never, ever easy.
So let's talk about a few tips if you want to talk right to your friend who's struggling. I would say the first tip is to not do it when they're high or or drunk, right? You've got to find the right time.
Yeah.
So aside from when they are actively using or suffering through the immediate effects of it, do you think there is a good time? Is there the right time?
Well, I think when you can have a safe space and a quiet environment and just in a non-judgmental way and through the most generous interpretation of how they're going to respond, whether it's through thoughts, feelings, actions, understand that they're going to be off-put and what they say is not like a projection right at you. Just say to somebody like, listen, there's some things going on that maybe don't add up, or what you're telling me is concerning to me and I love you, and can we have a conversation about currently where you're at, and not be blaming and not project you said you were going to do this and do this and not point out flaws. I think that that's where people become very defensive and combative and are going to walk away from that conversation. Just be accountable for what you think and feel and your response, and not what the other person's going to do. Because if you're your most authentic self and vulnerable in what you're sharing, I think it comes across as truly genuine and somebody's more willing to hear what you have to say. So not accusatory, not blaming, not pointing out flaws, but why are you sharing that with them? Like, hey, you have this going on and I'm worried.
So if you can point out, this is what's happening too, and then focus on something that that person loves the most, whether it's their child or your own friendship that you're talking about,
their
or
job.
a job. Yeah, so it's not here's what you're doing, here's what we see being affected by what's happening, so that there is a consequence being shown and not just talking about what the person did wrong.
I think that you have to say there's a consequence of the effects of the relationship. Like, this affects our relationship, and I don't necessarily feel safe if this is going to go on, is sometimes the conversation you have to have.
If you go and have this conversation, you need to be prepared for a few things, right? So if that friend admits like, oh my gosh, you're right, like I do need help, then what are you going to say, right? So you need to go into that.
You better plan.
Yeah, you better go into that conversation knowing how to respond if they say, you're right, I need help, what should I do?
You can call your local agency. In Pennsylvania, we call them single county authorities, the SCA, and they navigate getting people insurance, finding programs, providing assessments, making treatment recommendations, and you could say, like, here's where I'm at. This, I'm not the person, but I need to be able to give this person information. What's the process for intake with you? What's the process for making a referral? What information do I actually have to provide if I was going to walk through this program with them? Because you wouldn't realize the wide variety of information you actually need to know when you're referring somebody or helping somebody navigate treatment. It's kind of overwhelming, and it's not like, oh, you're going to get in.
Yeah.
Like, it's oftentimes very frustrating because there may not be a bed, or there may not be insurance in place, or they may not be ready that minute, but they may call you back and then you don't have things lined up. And so it's really gathering that information, going to Al-Anon, Nar-Anon, and being like, I'm a person who's got a person in crisis, you know, what are my options? Calling your local state agencies. That it's a process. It's frustrating. It doesn't happen overnight. And so you have to be willing, if you're going to have that conversation and say, hey, I have a concern, to stay with it and support them through it. And also to be present in the process.
Yeah.
And not just be like, oh, you know what, I think you have a problem.
See you later. Yeah.
You know, good luck to you.
Yeah,
good luck to you.
Yeah. I think if you care enough to have this very personal conversation with somebody, hopefully it means that you're, going to want to be there with them through it. Maybe you're the only one who will step forward, that maybe everybody else is going to be the bystander.
Right.
And watch it happen and just think somebody else will fix that. I would like also to talk about what they can do if they're too afraid or uncomfortable to talk to that person in, one-on-one, that there are other ways that you might be able to help that person. So when we were growing up, or not even growing up, I mean, God, we're so old, and I keep forgetting this is all like when we've been adult. We still have parents who are actively involved and who have always actively tried to assist in her all situations. So if you know a friend that is struggling, has that family support, like my sister did, then reach out to that family, because she had so many of her good friends who reached out to my parents and to me at various times through the last 20 years. Just to give you an example on how you can sort of think creatively on how to help a friend in crisis. So she was so I don't know, do you say high if it's not?
Oh, I was high.
Do you say high no matter what drug? Is it high?
Yeah, you're high.
I was high. I thought it was just pot. Whatever. So it was bad. She was super high, right? So she's in crisis looking for money to buy more drugs. And she's running through all her contacts, right? Because when you're that high...
Oh, it's sheer desperation.
You're so desperate. And so you're lying. There's so many lies with people that are addicted. And so when you're in the moment of addiction, the lies are just spewing forth, right?
Yeah.
So she's lying out her ass, right? Telling people why she needs money. It was something like your car broke down and you needed a hotel, and so you needed money. If he had said, no, I'm not giving you money, I know what it's for, you would have just gone to the next person. Or done something more terrible.
Right.
And it could have been, let's be real, there were situations where so many times you could have died.
Yeah, oh, absolutely.
Woo! So what he did, which was genius, he played into it because he knew that she was so high she wouldn't be aware that he was playing into it. And he said, sure, I'll give you the money. I'll meet you, but I need an hour and a half to get the money and for my wife to come home so she can be with the kids. Yeah. That was all a lie on his part, right? Because he knew it would take my parents an hour and a half to get to her. And of course he knew us well enough that he knew that they'd be right there. So he said that lie to her, gave you a place to meet where you were going to meet and get the money for the hotel. And then he called my parents, explained what had happened. And of course my parents jumped right in the car. And so my parents then went and met you.
And then brought me home.
And took her, and took her home. So he saved her that night from terrible things. It could have been an overdose. It could have been just terrible things that happen to you when you're so high you don't know what's going on. Right. This was a man he put in a situation, he wasn't reaching out on his own trying to help her, but he could have said no.
Right.
No, I'm not giving you money. But quick thinking, that really changed the course of what happened. Think of ways that you can help your friend, and it doesn't necessarily mean staging an intervention.
No, and intervention isn't always the best approach because the person's going to become combative. We have situations at work all the time where coworkers will call us and say, hey, like this person's been participating in treatment, but they're not really being honest with you, or they're not using what they used to use. Also calling probation or parole or a pastor or somebody who would be able to have that conversation that's not necessarily family. In the rooms in NA and AA and whatever A program, they will what they call 13th or not 13th 12th step. You don't want a 13th step anybody. 12, it's like when you get hey it's like all hooking up. That's like you prey on like somebody, the newcomers, you prey on newcomers. It's like inappropriate sexual relationships. It's a good time. Happens all the time.
Oh, God.
Yeah, and it will take people out because you're not supposed to be in a relationship because you're supposed to be in a relationship with yourself. And so it just derails everybody. But anyway, the 12th step, you get a 12th step call and you go out when a person's in crisis. So-and-so is not really doing well. And then you go as a group or one or two people and you have a conversation and try to redirect people to get the help that they need. But just be really prepared for not reacting when they negatively react and be solution-based, not be accusatory, and be the calm person and just share your concerns. You can also reach out to an HR, share with the HR, that person, you don't even have to say it's substance abuse based, but they might need an EAP referral because, jobs offer X sessions for free on your insurance without doing a full intake. And you can have a conversation with somebody outside of everybody in your life that you can process with. Again, on intherooms.com, there's a crisis button where if you are in crisis and you feel that way, you can say, my pants are on fire. The world's burning down. There's a lot of ways that weren't around before that you can help somebody engage. But I think it's just being empathic to what they're going through. The response to use isn't necessarily sometimes because they want to get high. It's because they're dealing with another crisis. So we have to be really cognizant of why people are responding the way they are, because if you see they're doing really well and then all of a sudden they're not, what just happened? And be mindful that you're navigating more than just substance use. You're navigating a response to crisis or trauma.
Somebody in high school filled out one of those forms on Gene. This was when, it was like just starting, right? In high school when the use just started, not like it was like crisis.
Yeah, I smoked pot a couple times, but they didn't like the way I behaved. It was different.
Anybody can have a problem.
Right.
Anybody. We knew lots of people through the education field when we were growing up, that my parents did. And we knew a lot of the teachers personally. One of the teachers who was on that committee got the form, saw that it was her name, and was like, "That's ridiculous. That would never happen." And they threw the form away and never did anything. Mom and Dad learned about it. And I remember when she told me the story, they said something like,
"That's the kind of kid."
If that's the kind of kid we're going to refer now, that I'm not going to be part of this.
But they don't know the crisis that you're going through and why you would respond that way.
Never think that. Anybody can be going through a crisis. Right. And just because they're from a good home doesn't mean that they're not using drugs or that something didn't happen to them that is causing a crisis. So, oh my gosh, don't ever say, well, it can't be that. Like, that's this person and they have a great family. I don't care who your family is. Right. It doesn't matter. If you are getting a referral, if somebody is saying, our friend Joe over there is struggling, don't be like, whatever. No, he's not. Yeah. Like, no, he might be.
Right. Well, I mean, so in the last couple of weeks, I've lost quite a few people to an overdose or intentional, or they've taken their own life. This current situation we're in creates a lot of stress, and people don't have the coping skills to navigate it. And you might find people who have been clean for years, which my friend was clean for 8 years and she took her own life. She obviously was behaving in ways that people in her daily life knew something was wrong, but they didn't necessarily say, "Hey, honey, what's the story?" Just because, you knew them to be wild at one point. If somebody is stabilized and they start to behave in a different way, it may not be that they're using, but their mental health might be bad. They may have been assaulted. They could be in crisis in so many different ways. So it's really important. And they may be mad at you for a hot second.
Yeah.
But oh well. Yeah. And once you get over 90 people saying something to you, if the onslaught comes, you realize that the people that did say something truly care about you, and that you're blessed to have those people in your life, and you can move past that if you're really on a path to wellness. And if you're not, then that's where you need treatment so that you can look at that distorted thinking. Building that conversation is uncomfortable. Just be prepared, have resources, have a conversation with somebody in your town that's gone through it. Build those supports for yourself so you know what you're doing. And don't be afraid to just say, "Hey, I love you, I'm concerned," because you may not see that person again. And that's tragic. And we don't want to lose anybody, because we all have the possibility to recover. And love is truly the answer. And if you love somebody, you share that with them. Yeah.
Don't be a bystander.
No.
Be a helper.
Always look for the helpers.
See you guys. Bye. All right, this is Mowgli.
Momo arigato, Mr. Roboto. Momo.
Thank you.
Momo. I know. I love you too. I love you, Mo. I know. Boople Snoot. You're my favorite, Boople Snoot.
Okay, gotta get down though. Gotta get down. I gotta get all the black hair off me.
That's gonna happen. I have to get dog spit off my nose.
Hairy leggings on the bottom. White shirt on the top.
Listen, I'll have you know that Bastarde let me.
No.
Yes. Put her head down and let me smooch
in the bed.
No, when I was in the bathroom, because they follow you to the bathroom.
Yeah. No, so if I go in the half bath downstairs, just sit down and pee, he's scraping on the door. Let me in! Let me in! Ew, what is that? Oh, it's a rock.
It's a rock.
It was slimy like a big booger. No, but you have a big chunk of skin right there. You ate it.
Yeah.
You have to Schussenheimer.
Schussenheims. Zip it. Zip. I.
Fix the little...
Your floof McBoofs.
I'm a floof McBoof right here.
Floop. Floop. Jim.
This is Floop and McBoof. How to help a friend. That's my dog.
Yeah, help them.
You have to shush it.
Zip.
Otherwise, you have to go upstairs.
Okay.
Oh, did you like that idea? You want to go upstairs? Or maybe you've been hurt by the friend's addiction. But now I'm out of breath because I'm super out of shape. There's a lot of stairs.
There's like 8 steps.
So bad.
How are you dying?
So out of shape.